Is this the Hollywood of 1935? Or is this Disney's Hollywood Studios today? Yes, it's both. Hey, this is Mark, your host. If you rewind to episode number 2 of Your Creative Brief, you'll learn about a photography side project I do called Historical Photo Merge. It's a pretty simple process. You find an old archival photo of an amazing piece of architecture, you get on some mode of transportation and get to where that architecture is or was, you stand in the exact same spot as the original photographer and take your modern photo, travel home and spend way too many hours mashing those two photos up seamlessly together. Now, the architecture of Disney's Hollywood Studios was heavily inspired by the architecture of the golden era of Hollywood. This gives DHS this romantic, nostalgic charm that I just love. In fact, the park was dedicated in 1989 as the Hollywood that never was but always will be. Over the years, I've been able to do a ton of archival photo research of structures in Hollywood and Los Angeles. And then I've challenged myself to travel down to Orlando and photo merge the Imagineered versions of these same buildings. It can be quite a challenge because they are often a totally different scale and much more of a caricature of the originals. I'll put a link in the show notes below to the Imagineering Field Guide to Disney's Hollywood Studios, where you can learn a whole lot more about this subject. Today we're just going to take a look at the entrance of Disney's Hollywood Studios. And this is actually a photo of my family and I about a year ago getting there at the crack of dawn to make sure that we could get on Rise of the Resistance that day. Anyway, the entrance is modeled after the Pan Pacific Auditorium built in Los Angeles in 1935. Now, the architecture style is called Streamline Modern, and it is based off of the wings and fins of cars and trains and planes of that era. So let's take a quick look at my photo merge. Not too bad when you consider the buildings were different and in totally different locations. Now, a fascinating little factoid is that one of the architects of Pan Pacific Auditorium, Welton Beckett, actually helped Walt Disney with the concepts of Disneyland years later. It's a small world after all, right? The auditorium was crazy popular for about 3 decades, featuring political rallies, sports spectaculars, and the most popular musicians, including Elvis. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, some of you who are middle-aged like myself may actually remember the front of Pan Pacific Auditorium from the 1980s cult movie classic Xanadu with Olivia Newton-John. Yeah, remember that? Sadly, by 1985, the auditorium was completely dilapidated and abandoned, and it actually burned down 3 weeks after the opening of Disney's Hollywood Studios in Orlando. Fortunately, in 2002, the land where the auditorium was turned into a recreational park called Pan Pacific Park, and it features a replica of one of those Streamline Modern turrets right at the entrance. I'm going to put a link to Google Street Maps in the show notes below so you can take a look at that. Hey, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this historical photo merge and learning some useless trivia along the way as well. Now, we'll probably take a look at some more of my photo merges from DHS in upcoming episodes. Now, that's one of my very favorite Disney parks, and if it's one of yours, I want to hear from you in the comments below. Let me know what your favorite attraction is, or building, or what favorite food you get when you're there. This is Mark saying so long for now. We'll see you next time on Your Creative Brief.